And likewise with this case of abortion, it is really important to be at the place where we are praying. And the concern is particularly that, I know for myself with my arrest, that the prayers weren't even being manifested. It wasn't that I was kind of kneeling down, holding rosary beads or with a Bible in my hand, speaking prayers. They were simply silent, imperceptible thoughts in my head. In fact, the police officers had to ask me, are you praying? What are you praying for? The fact that someone thinks it's okay to be asking somebody those questions which even my spiritual advisors and priests have never asked me, I think that's incredibly intrusive, incredibly concerning from a religious freedom perspective and freedom of thought as well.
Thanks very much. If I could ask you then about the question of proximity. So before the buffer zone was brought in Birmingham, you were praying adjacent to the facility. Now I'd say that you were not allowed to, even before the buffer zone was brought in, you wouldn't have been allowed to pray inside the facility, in the waiting room, or indeed in the room where the procedure is taking place. Do you agree that that was an acceptable limit, that placing some kind of limit was acceptable? It wouldn't have been appropriate for you to be praying in the room where the procedure was taking place while it was taking place, and that therefore this isn't a black or white about restriction or no restriction. It's about where we place that restriction.
We've always been very respectful of private property, but we're talking about a public street now, and I think that creates a very different situation when we're talking about somebody can't pray on a public street. So clearly other people are allowed in this street. When I was standing outside the abortion centre, there were people standing on the street in different places around doing different things. They might have been looking at their phones. They might have been stopping to chat with friends. So clearly if it's a public street and we're simply banning thoughts if they're directed towards God, that's really concerning. Even if somebody else doesn't understand why we're doing that or the importance of that, and I appreciate that other people might not understand or believe in all the things that I believe in, but to criminalise my thoughts because they're directed towards God, I think that's actually discrimination.
Thanks for that. If I could just press you a wee bit on that. So the provisions in the bill would provide for these 200-metre zones. Now, in some cases, certainly in Scotland, in some cases, even out with that 200 metres, you would still be on the campus of the provider. So I just want to make sure I'm getting your perspective correctly and we're recording it correctly. Are you saying it would be acceptable, even if it was beyond 200 metres, it would be acceptable for the no protest to take place on the premises, on the campus of the provider? And your argument is that where it's a public space, a public highway, that shouldn't be restricted.
I am talking about public property, and if it's a place where any public people are allowed to go, then I've got particular concerns about that. But if we're trying to restrict silent prayer, I think, again, as what Bishop John was saying, that's a concern anywhere. If we're saying that somebody can't think their own thoughts in a house, in a building, our silent prayer should be allowed anywhere that people are allowed. Because we should never, again, something from the Bible, we're told to pray unceasingly in the Bible. This is something that St. Paul talks about. So for those who believe in the Gospels, believe in the Bible and try and follow that teaching, their prayer is something that actually should be, going with them at all times in some way or another. So even on private property, silent prayer should be allowed, but I appreciate that it's up to the individuals who hold ownership to private property as to who is allowed in that property. But if it's, whenever anyone is allowed in a property, they should be allowed to silently pray there if they wish. But if we're talking about a public street, to say that somebody can't come into that public street, solely on the basis of what they might be thinking, as I say, that's discriminatory.
I completely understand why the emphasis is on the provisions around silent prayer. I'd be interested in your perspective on the other forms of vigil, or what some people would characterise as protest. Your perspective is that silent prayer should certainly not be restricted, and I completely understand that perspective. Where do you come down where it is, what we have seen examples of, where it's the placement of, or people holding placards with provocative messages on them, with images of an unborn baby or a fetus, where we have heard evidence of images being projected onto the wall of a hospital. Obviously, walls have windows, so being projected into the rooms of a hospital as well. So I understand and respect your perspective on silent prayer. I think it'd be really important for us to understand your perspective on the other kinds of activities that have taken place in Scotland, where it is more visual, more provocative. People would characterise it differently, but where there's more to it, if you understand what I'm asking.
I think this is something that Alina spoke into when she said that we've got to be very careful that we don't patronise women just because they are pregnant. Clearly, many of these women may be in vulnerable situations, but that vulnerability can go both ways. We know that coercion is a big situation, for instance, with regards to those who are seeking abortions or considering an abortion. And to be able to, if a woman at that stage is so influenced simply by seeing a picture of a baby, then it's quite possible that woman's mind isn't made up as hard and fast as we're often told. The amount of people that I've spoken to who've said to me that, literally until the last second, they weren't sure which way they were going to turn, whether they were going to have an abortion or not. These people should be able to look at it. On
that one, just part of the evidence we've heard is, I think it is important for us to talk about this, it's not just women going in potentially to have an abortion that we're talking about. It's all people accessing a service, and we've heard evidence that women who have had miscarriages or stillbirths are deeply distressed to see these images, and they might be accessing the premises for a completely different reason. In most cases in Scotland, it's a hospital. They could be accessing it for all sorts of reasons, totally unrelated to reproductive health care. But if they've had that kind of experience, seeing these images can be deeply distressing for them as well, not just for pregnant women.
And clearly, somebody who's in a state of distress might be distressed at anything. They might see a woman walking in with a baby in a pram, and that might distress them. When they're in the hospital, they might see someone else who's pregnant. That might distress them because they want to be pregnant, and this person is intentionally ending their pregnancy. There's all sorts of things that might distress people when they're in those situations, and nobody wants anyone else to be distressed. But we can't start making all these things criminal. Unless there's something in and of themselves which is intentionally being offensive. And I don't think any of these things are. I don't think we can say that a picture of a preborn child becomes offensive simply because somebody might get upset at seeing it, any more than somebody carrying a baby is offensive just because it might upset somebody.
Thank you.
We're now reaching the halfway point of proceedings.